A very pleasant afternoon to you all. Welcome to my channel. Our topic of discussion for today is titled The Concept of Spiritual Intelligence. What is intelligent about the spiritual? Can anything be intelligent about the spiritual? Spiritual intelligence has something to do, for example, with understanding the spiritual or metaphysical principles that govern life. Spiritual intelligence is inner sensitivity. It is inner seeing, inner hearing, inner feeling, and such things. It has more to do with intuiting. Is intuition real? The curious mind will want to ask. Yes, it is. Again, it is inner sensitivity. Intuition is a human faculty that is sensitive to waves or currents of higher frequencies above what the physical senses can pick. Remember, for example, that as we speak, radio stations are on. But because they are operating with waves of high frequencies, the ear cannot pick them. But when a radio receiver, which is attuned to such frequencies, is deployed, it is able to pick those waves at such frequencies and convert them to sound for the human ear to perceive. What the radio does is to step down the frequency of the waves to the level where the ear can hear it or hear them. So, as a rough illustration, the human intuition works like the antenna of a radio receiver, which picks waves of higher frequencies and convert them to sound. The intuition picks waves of messages from on high and transmits them to the intellect, which then renders such messages materially comprehensible for earthly application. Life exists in levels of frequencies. What we call the spiritual is nothing but a layer of frequency. We call it spiritual because it is not immediately available to empirical scrutiny. In the final analysis, every layer is material, in quotes, or tangible. It will become material or tangible to you once you transit to that layer. But remember, however, that the limit of empiricity is very, very elastic. Thus, what we thought was not empirical yesterday has become empirical today. What we think is not empirical today can become empirical tomorrow. Before the advent of microscope, we all thought that a glass of clean water was pure. But with the microscope, we now know that inside the so-called glass of clean, pure water, there are millions of microorganisms. If we increase the power of the microscope beyond where it is today, we will see more. There was a time we all thought, with evidence, that the earth was flat. Today, we know better. Is science not telling us now that there are more than 9 planets? Each theory claims to be supported by evidence. So the limit of empiricity grows, and there is a prospect of its ever continuous growth. So the limit of our knowledge, the limit of our empiricity, is not the limit of the world. For example, it is a spiritual, metaphysical principle that whatever a man sows is what he reaps. It takes spiritual intelligence to know that this principle is real and that it actually works. For some, this principle applies only to agricultural life. But this is not correct, as it goes far beyond that to permeate every aspect of human life. For example, each time we think, talk, and act, we sow seeds into the vast field of creation. These germinate and produce fruits for those who planted them to harvest. Remember, the harvest always comes in multiples of what was sown. Hence, 2 seeds of corn gives a cob of it. Remember that man is not just a rational being. He is equally an emotional as well as an intuitive being. He was meant to develop all these abilities or faculties and let his life be guided by an interplay of them, with the intuition leading. But unfortunately, many of us have developed one-sidedly. Many of us have developed, in fact, overdeveloped only the rational aspect. Remember, man is a fallen creature. Thus, the rational aspect has become so strong and so domineering that many of us have lost the ability to sense inwardly, the ability to intuit. This loss, has advanced to such a stage that many of us no longer even know what intuition is, or that we even have it. Many now proudly call themselves materialists. From the perspectives of the idealist, spiritualist, intuitionist, being a materialist is actually a limitation, a fall, a loss of ability, something to decry. Here, the materialist will ask for proofs or evidence. But as much as that is a desirable, legitimate demand, which deserves to be responded to, I must first point out that life goes beyond reason, that there is reasonableness beyond reason. There are some things that reason cannot comprehend because it is limited. Beyond reason, man should also strive to know intuitively. But again, the call to know intuitively does not in any way mean that we should throw away reasonableness. But there is logic, even in spheres that are beyond reason. Thus, what is truth should not contain any inherent contradiction. In this connection, in addition to asking for evidence or proof, what is also desirable and legitimate is to challenge the materialist to relocate in order to see better. The one-sided demand for proof, for another to prove to you, involves a refusal to move, to walk, so that you can see more. We all know, for example, that what you can see from on top of the roof is far more than what you can see standing on the ground. The one-sided demand for proof is sometimes reminiscent, for example, of a primary school pupil who can only understand almighty formula in mathematics only at the secondary school level, but who refuses to move to secondary school, yet insists that others must come down to his level to prove almighty formula to him. Proof sometimes involves watering down, and it is not always easy and or possible to do in every circumstance. So for me, there is spiritual intelligence. It is the knowledge of the spiritual principles that govern life. It is the knowledge of the truths about life. They can be known by those who truly desire to know them. The bane of humanity today is the massive level of ignorance about these principles. They are the ones that determine human experiences or the human fate. They take their courses, whether man is aware of them or not, because they are perfect, adamantine, inflexible, eternal laws that have been woven into creation by the ultimate intelligence behind life. And ignorance of the laws is not an excuse. So the concept Evidence is essentially contested concept because when you talk about evidence, you need to further answer whether you mean my evidence, your evidence, or our evidence. Refer to what I said earlier about the fluid nature of evidence, the fact that it grows, the fact that different people have different levels of appreciation of reality, of the need for the inquirer to relocate in certain circumstances, and the challenge of watering down in some other circumstances. Life is not just matter. Spirituality is part of life, and in fact, the essential part. That Mr. A cannot explain it does not mean everybody cannot. The so-called scientific phenomena of remote control system, live transmission of events across distances, even telephony, magnetism, and many more today speak for the reality of the spiritual. Think of the connection between ideas and physical realities, between theory and practice. Ideas, they say, rule the world. So there is spiritual intelligence, and it is the knowledge of the spiritual principles that govern life. I urge you to strive in your quest for knowledge to discover these spiritual principles so that you will become spiritually intelligent. Thank you for listening. Remember to like, share among your loved ones, and keep coming back to this channel for new videos that will come later. Thank you.